Okay, so looks like we're back. All right, I think we are back. So we had a huge audience, and now we don't. Although, in the intervening moments here, I did hear from Comcast, and they said they'll get back to me. And it kills me because I've got the new connection. It's installed. It's in the closet over there. We're ready to go. It's just a matter of them coming here to hook up the last part of it. So let's finish this up here. And I apologize, as usual. I don't know why I'm apologizing for Comcast's inability to keep my internet connection going here. Although this last one seems like it was worse than before, because this actually, like, my whole internet went down briefly, so there must have been a little glitch in the network locally, which is usually not what happens. Usually it's just my house. All right, give me one more second. Okay. All right, we are good to go. So we last left off on the pencil. And let me grab the clip that I just shot, because we have two parts to the pencil that we have to do. And by the way, everybody, here's the deal. If we get dumped out on YouTube again, pivot over to Amazon. Because what happens is that Amazon will hold the connection up longer, and the YouTube one dumps me out quicker. Now, like the prior two generations of the entry-level iPad, this new one supports the Apple Pencil, but it only supports the first generation pencil, not the second generation one. The good news, though, is that the first generation Apple Pencil costs less, and it charges just by plugging itself into the bottom of the iPad into its Lightning connector. This little cap here comes off and you can get it charged. I have long believed that the Apple Pencil is the best digital pen on the market. It really works nicely. It rarely picks up my wrist by accident, so the second the pen gets close to this thing, it just ignores my wrist input and I can start drawing. Somebody in my live chat here wanted me to draw a horse, which I can do real quick. I'm not a very good artist, so there you go. But it's a very natural feeling pen. The latency on the virtual ink here is very, very minimal. It just feels great, and I've been very, very pleased with this, both for drawing, but mostly for note-taking, which I tend to do the most on my iPad. Now, one thing that you can also get is a Apple Pencil alternative, and there are a lot of them out there that don't cost all that much. We looked at the Adonit Note recently, which is a very low-cost pencil. It doesn't have all the features of this one, but it can get the job done for note-taking. But if you want to do a lot of drawing, the Apple Pencil is probably going to be the way to go. And why that is because there are two different sensors on the pencil that are of note. The first is a pressure sensor. So if I just lightly draw my line here, I get a light line. But if I push down harder, I get a darker one. And then I can also tilt the pencil here to get a thicker line. And it's able to detect exactly how tilted my pen is as I'm drawing. And those are some of the things that are unique to the Apple Pencil that you won't find on all of the alternatives. But again, if you're just doing note-taking, I think you might be able to get by with one of the alternative pens. And we've reviewed a bunch of those pens in a prior video. Okay, so let's do a couple more things here, because this also supports all the new pen features. So we're going to kind of demo some of those features real quick. So we're going to show the handwriting recognition, which is not on this component, but it does it on some of the other parts. All right, so, because I have it on the A thing, I just got to remember how this works. So if I write, that's right, it does do, right, okay. Okay. 3, 2, 1. And like the other iPads, it supports some of the new pen features that have been introduced with iPad OS. One of them is some of these new smart things that it, 3, 2, 1. And like the more expensive iPads, it can do a lot of the new smarter, what do they call this? It's like, is it iPad, what's iPad OS 14, right? Let me look this up real quick. iPad OS 14, they call it Scribble, is that what they call it? Yes, Scribble. 3, 2, 1. And like the more advanced iPads, this now supports Scribble with iPad OS 14. I'm in the Notes app right now and I have this little A pen selected. And if I start writing my name here, for example, it will recognize my handwriting and convert it into text. If I draw a circle here and hold down the pen at the end of that circle, usually it completes the circle. It didn't do it that time. Oh, it's like recognizing handwriting. Maybe it's in this mode that it does that? Hang on a second, let's see. Okay, it was my fault. Okay, let's try that again. See, I'm so used to the Newton, because on the Newton you used to draw a circle and scribble it out and it would get rid of it. This one doesn't seem to do that. All right, let's get the eraser out here real quick and just zap that sucker. What I could do. How do you just like erase something? I guess I could hit the delete key on my, there we go, okay, on my keyboard. Three, two, one. And by the way, we're recording a video while we're doing this thing here, in case you're wondering what's going on. And yeah, we had a very bad internet outage just a few minutes ago, and we dumped the whole stream. We had 1,000 people watching, and everybody left because of Comcast. So hopefully my new connection will be ready soon, and we can stop having these problems, because I just lost 20 minutes due to internet problems. Okay, one more time. 3, 2, 1. Now, like the other 3, 2, 1. Now, like the higher end iPads, this one also supports Scribble, which is a new AI-driven pen mode. So, for example, in Notes, I can hit the little A pen here, and if I just start writing, it's going to recognize the handwriting that I'm doing and convert it into text, which I think is really neat. Another thing you can do is draw more perfect shapes. So if I draw a square here and then hold the pen at the end of that square, it's going to make it more perfect. Let me scroll down here and give you a better, shoot, it screwed up. So I have this little bit of ink here that was confusing it. So let me just get rid of all of this stuff here. Okay. Try this one more time. Okay. Yeah, so we went from 1,000 feet, right, so here's a great comment from Yaka, whatever. You got a long name there, buddy. My real 39 fans are here. Yeah, we went from 900 and change to 39. It's awful. So that's it. Okay, let's try this one more time. 3, 2, 1. Now, like the other more expensive iPads, this one supports the new Scribble feature, and this is some AI-driven pen things that you can do. So we've got the little A pen selected here in Notes, and if I just start writing my name, what it's going to do is convert my handwriting into regular text. It doesn't always get it correct, but it's usually pretty good. Let me try this one more time. See, it often gets a little nervous when it's live. I'm going to make the font bigger too so people can see it. Okay, there we go. One more time. In case you're wondering, we are shooting a video live while we are recording this one. And I'm also seeing how we could get into trouble like we did before with this. So let's do that. Let's make the font large, and we'll go from there. Okay. Three, two, one. Now, like the other more expensive iPads, this one supports Scribble, which is a new feature of iPad OS 14 that allows you to use your handwriting for input. So, for example, as I'm writing things out here in Notes, I can say, hello, this is a test, and it will convert my handwriting into text. It doesn't always get it correctly every time, but it gets it most of the time. It's pretty accurate, a little bit more accurate than my Newton was back in the day. And you can also scribble things out here just by squiggling on them like the old Newton used to do. It also can do shape detection here in Notes. So if I select the pen icon and draw a circle and hold it right here, it'll make me a perfect circle. So if you have a problem drawing straight lines and straight squares and stuff, you can just have the Scribble feature do that for you. Additionally, when you're in a web browser or another, let me kick it back to here. I'm going to see if I can cut that a little bit better. Lewis is asking, here, I'll put this comment up here while I'm getting the clip prepared. Is it USB-C? Nope, this one is still Lightning. So they did not change it to USB-C. The new iPad Air will. Part 2 cut before E. Okay, so let's try it. Let's see how this, if I can work with this clip. So let's see how that came out. 3, 2, 1. Now, like the other more expensive iPads, this one supports Scribble, which is a new feature of iPad OS 14 that allows you to use your handwriting for input. So for example, as I'm writing things out here in Notes, I can say, hello, this is a test, and it will convert my handwriting into text. It doesn't always get it correctly every time, but it gets it most of the time. It's pretty accurate, a little bit more accurate than my Newton was back in the day. And you can also scribble things out here just by squiggling on them like the old Newton used to do. It also can do shape detection here in Notes. So if I select the pen icon and draw a circle and hold it right here, it'll make me a perfect circle. So if you have a problem drawing straight lines and straight squares and stuff, you can just have the Scribble feature do that for you. Additionally, when you're in a web browser or another... Okay, so I'm going to have it cut for you. So give me 1 second here, folks. Cut at for you. Okay. And I'm just doing some clip logging here, and then we'll do the text input next on a web browser window. So we'll just go to Google real quick and do that. All right, bear with me for 1 second here, folks. Three, two, one. And Scribble will also let you do 3, 2, 1. And Scribble will also let you do handwriting input when there are text input fields. And a great example would be here on Google. So if I wanted to do a search here for NASA, I can just write it into the search window there, and it will recognize the text, and I can go on from there. And I could also do it up here as well. So if I wanted to just put in NASA.gov, it will let me basically type in the address using handwriting. And of course, my chicken scratch isn't always properly detected here on the iPad, but generally, when I'm not talking and writing at the same time, it is able to get my handwriting most of the time. And if you've ever been using the pen and didn't want to put it down to start tapping on the screen, it's pretty useful just to be able to write things in and get that text inputted quickly. Let me do this whole thing all over again. I don't like how that came out. One more time. And this is why I do multiple takes, just to get it to the point where I'm happy with it. And we don't script anything here either, so we tend to just roll with it. All right, let's try this again. Pete Buca has a question here. So this is not a replacement for anything other than the low-end iPad. So this is the, he's saying, are they dumping the iPad Pro for this? Now, this is the entry point. So it does, but I think what's interesting is that the entry-level iPad will do everything the more expensive iPads do. It's just not as powerful. It doesn't have as much memory or processing power, but it does do a pretty decent job. So it's not going to be a replacement, but it is decent. And like Wow here is asking, why don't you review products next to each other? Partly because I don't always have all of them here at the same time to review. So I do have an iPad Pro, but it's the older one. And Apple doesn't send me stuff, so I have to buy it all. So it's hard to get a lot of these in at the same time. And I found to get more traffic on lower-end products like this versus higher-end products, which is why we often look at these. But I think for people that are on a budget, you know, this is $200 or more less than the comparable iPad Air. And you could buy like 4 of these for what one iPad Pro would cost. So it's pretty crazy. And actually, here's a good comment here also, because I do have this in the hopper probably next week about my whole workflow from start to finish. I'm going to be setting up a laptop to run my live production software that I use for doing all these videos. So I will definitely have something coming up for that. All right, so let me do 3, 2, 1. Now outside of the 3, 2, 1. Now outside of the Notes application, you can use Scribble just about anywhere the iPad is looking for text inputs. Let me show you an example of that. So right now I've got a Google search window up here, and if I type in NASA over where I would normally type, it will recognize the text, and as you can see here, I can tap my way over to NASA. You can also go up to areas like the address bar here and just write in right there as well. So I can type in nasa.gov here, and it didn't get it. Shoot, hang on. You know, part of it is I'm talking and writing at the same time, and it's so hard to do that. My brain cannot do I'm too old to do two things at once. I should have my kids come down here and do that. All right, one more time. 3, 2, 1. Now, Scribble works in a lot of different places on the iPad, even in apps that are not specifically designed for the pen. And a great example of that would be the web browser here. And I've got a Google search window up. And what I can do is just write right in the search window here, and it will bring me to, it's still not working right. This used to work a lot better than, than it was before. Let me zoom in a little bit too, because it's a little hard to see. So I'm going to kind of do that. And people can see it a little bit better. I'm going to slow down and write slower, and I think that might help. So let's try that again. Because it does work better. I've been using this. It's not usually this bad, but it's bad because I'm recording it right now. That's why it's doing that. 3, 2, 1. Now, Scribble will work beyond just the Notes application. You can actually use it anywhere there's a text input field. So here's a great example. This is the Google search engine just running in Safari. And if I go in here and write in NASA, it will actually recognize that text and input it into the field here. Likewise, if I go up to the address bar here and just type in or write in nasa.gov, it will recognize the text and usually bring me right to the website. Things like web addresses and stuff are a little more difficult up there in the address bar, but I could, though, type in maybe SpaceX here and have it find a result for me in Google or take me right to, one more time. See, and it's just totally messing me up now. It's making me look bad, or it's making itself look bad, not me. Let's try this again. One more time. Take it from the top. 3, 2, 1. Now, Scribble works in a lot of different places on the iPad, and pretty much anytime you see a text input field, you can now write in there. So for example, here on Google, I can just write in NASA right on the little search window there, and it will start bringing up search results for me. That's pretty cool. But I can also write in right here at the top on the address bar. So if I write in here Space Shuttle, it will recognize the text and do a Google search for me as well. And this is pretty handy because if you are using the pen in one application and don't want to have to put it down to start typing and you don't want to tap on an on-screen keyboard, now you can just write anywhere and it will recognize that. And it's really great to see this working on the entry-level version as well as it does on their higher-end products. That's a keeper. Got a note here from Krestov who asks, this is on the Amazon chat, how do you feel this would be for sketching and note-taking? Does the screen feel big enough? You know, it's hard because I don't do a lot of drawing, but this does feel like a decent-sized screen for note-taking for sure. I still find I write notes better on paper, and I have the 11-inch iPad Pro here, and I usually take a lot of notes on that. And I think this is probably fine for that. I think for sketching, you might want the larger iPad. The iPad Pro 12 is just huge. And I think that might be better for artists. And unfortunately, I am not a very good artist, so I can't provide a lot of input on that. Bear with me for 1 second. I just want to log a clip. Got some more questions to answer, though, so we're going to get to those in 1 second here. All right. Let me just watch this real quick and make sure I'm happy with it, and then we'll continue on. I'm nearing the end of my time here, too. I knew this was not going to go well. 3, 2, 1. Now, Scribble works in a lot of different places on the iPad, and pretty much any time you see a text input field, you can now write in there. So for example, here on Google, I can just write in NASA right on the little search window there, and it will start bringing up search results for me. That's pretty cool. But I can also write in right here at the top on the address bar. So if I write in here Space Shuttle, it will recognize the text and do a Google search for me as well. And this is pretty handy because if you are using the pen in one application and don't want to have to put it down to start typing and you don't want to tap on an on-screen keyboard, now you can just write anywhere and it will recognize that. And it's really great to see this working on the entry-level version as well as it does on their higher-end products. Okay. So next up, I want to show Procreate, just because this is like a real higher-end drawing application. Let me tilt it this way a little bit. And I did not draw this. This is like their built-in thing. And let me see if there was a question here from Funster that was relevant to the chat. Is this using the new pen? No, it's still using the old one. So this is first generation pen only. So you still have to buy the first gen. The good news is the first gen pen is less expensive, except to charge it, you've got to stick it on the bottom of the, the iPad here. So that's the only downside to it. All right. So let's go close this out. And we're going to get into this. And I was trying to figure out the best way I can demo this. This one doesn't have a lot of layers. Let's go into, I think this one has a lot of layers. There was like a sample image in Procreate that had a ton of layers. I think it's this one. Huh. All right. It's good enough to just kind of show a demo, so we're just going to jump into it and just kind of show it loading. All right. Alvin wants to know, is the screen laminated? So I don't know if you're talking about the air gap. If you're talking about the air gap, there is one on here. They do, though, have that anti-fingerprint stuff on there, so it's not going to feel cheap, but it's going to feel old because it does have, it may be hard to see, but it does have a pretty sizable air gap on it, just like the other ones did. So this is not going to have that screen to glass feeling that the new ones have. All right. And yes, Alvin, 3 gigs on this one. Okay, so we last left off on that. So we're going to cut to me, and then we're going to talk about Procreate, and we'll go on from there. So next is the keyboard support, and then we'll do a brief demo of games with the Xbox controller, and then we'll be done. So we're making progress. We're almost there. I might be done before dinner time. That's the goal. That's the goal. We'll see. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Now, if you're actually, I'm going to talk about how I'm not an artist. 3, 2, 1. Now, as you saw, I am not an artist, so I'm 3, 2, 1. Now, as you saw, I am not an artist, but I think if you are looking to do artwork on here, it might be a decent device for that. You can run some of the higher-end apps here like Procreate, which allow you to do very complex multi-layered images here. You have a ton of different paint brushes to choose from with this one, and it seems to give me all of the different options and things. One more time. See, I don't know a lot about artwork, and that's why it's hard to make a good recommendation here. How do I undo what I just did? Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to start just a different one. All right, let's try this again. 3, 2, 1. Now, as you saw, I am not an artist, so I'm not going to be able to give a lot of good advice on whether or not this works for artists, but I will say, again, that the Apple Pencil is a really good tool for doing digital artwork, and a lot of the apps that you might run on the more expensive iPads also run on here just fine. This is Procreate, which is a very complex art and drawing application with a ton of depth, and it's something that I've been playing with a little bit, and my daughter's been doing a lot with, and it seems to run on here pretty nicely. I think if you start getting into some of the more complex things, that's where you're probably going to want to go to the iPad Pro with its significantly faster processor. There's also a much larger screen available on the iPad Pro at over 12 inch. Let me start that again, one more time. We're getting there. We are getting there. 3, 2, 1. Now, one other thing. Sorry, I got to quit this app again and try this from the top. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Now, as you saw, I am not an artist, but you might be wondering, can you run some of the more high-end art applications on here? And the answer is yes, you can. So for example, I've got Procreate loaded up here. As you can see, it springs up here pretty quickly. I can work with the screen like you would on a higher-end iPad. I have all the different brush options available to me here. And I have found it to be pretty good. Now, again, I'm not an artist here, so I'm not going to be able to... this thing's still not cooperating. One more time. One more time. We'll get there. All right. 3, 2, 1. Now, as you saw, I am not an artist, but this does run most of the apps that you might be looking to run if you are drawing and doing other types of artwork on your iPad. This is Procreate, which is a pretty advanced drawing application. You can do a lot of multi-layered things with it. You've got a ton of brush options on here as well. My daughter's been doing a lot with Procreate, and she does some really cool artwork here. And I found it works pretty nicely. It's not as zippy, perhaps, as my iPad Pro might be, but I found for doing this kind of stuff, it really does have the same... I'm still not feeling it here. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can undo this. This is the problem when I venture into areas where I don't have a lot of expertise. I'm trying to give people information that would be helpful, but at the same time, it's hard to know exactly what an artist is going to be looking for. So I wanted to... The point I'm trying to make here is that the iPad can run everything. It's just not going to be as powerful as the iPad Pro. Jack, my friend from Amazon, is asking here, how does this iPad compare to the Pro? So you can buy, I think, about 4 of these for what the entry-level Pro would cost. So right off the bat, you've got a pretty good price advantage. The big difference with the Pro is that the screens are larger, and you also have a much more powerful processor. So I could load up Procreate here and have I should have started recording. You could load up Procreate here and have a single layer image. It'll still feel pretty fast and responsive, but if you're doing a lot of complex artwork and layering in layer upon layer, it's going to feel a little bit different perhaps than what we're experiencing here right now. And I totally just messed this up. And that's the one thing with Procreate. I don't know how I can go back and undo. It's not very kind to undo on here, is it? Let's see if I can find the option to undo something. If I shook it like you would shake the iPad normally, and it doesn't seem to like that. As you can see, I don't use Procreate all that often. So I think if you're a serious artist, you're going to want to go with an iPad Pro, or if you're doing a lot of photo work or video editing or something like that. But these little ones hold their own. I mean, it's funny because for my 7-year-old, she doesn't need the iPad Pro. You know, like this is fine. But again, if you're a professional, I think you want to go with something a little bit beefier. All right, let's try this again here. We're going to take this from the top and try to get this clip done. So I'm trying not to... See, my concern here in this, as I'm shooting this particular clip, is that I am delving into an area where I don't have expertise, which is, and I'm not an artist. I don't do artwork. I do I do Photoshop-like activities to make my thumbnails. So I want to be very careful about guiding consumers who are buying this specifically for art, because I don't have the expertise in art to make a proper recommendation. So where I'm going with this is that you can run the applications, but you're going to hit a limit somewhere. And unfortunately, I'm not sure where that limit's going to be. And I'm guessing it's going to be based on the number of layers that you're putting in and that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I'm going to land on this clip here. And I think Terry makes probably the best point here. I'll pull his comment up here from YouTube, which is that if you want to make money with an iPad, then save up for an iPad Pro. And that, I think, is a very good point. And you do have some more flexibility on output options and USB devices and that sort of thing, absolutely. All right, so let's pick it up from here, and we're going to get this clip done on this take. I know it. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Now, as you saw, I am not an artist, but you can run a lot of advanced creative applications on here. I'm going to load up one real quick just to show you that it works. That is Procreate, and I've been messing up all their custom artwork here that they include with it. But this is a really advanced multi-layer illustration application. My daughter's been doing a lot with this, and I'm just amazed by what she can do. And it works fine. I mean, I think if you start going into a lot of heavy-duty artwork where you're layering in a lot of different things and you're really taxing the hardware, you're going to probably hit the limit here when you get a little too advanced with your creativity. But if you're just doing basics here, like just drawing on screen and maybe having 5 or 6 layers or something on Procreate, I think this iPad might be a good starting point, especially if you're on a budget. You can buy this iPad and this pencil for significantly less than what an iPad Pro will cost you. Where the iPad Pro has an advantage, though, is in its overall processing power, the amount of memory it has. It's going to be a lot faster as you start getting more complex with your artwork and photography and video. And that's still where I'll point people who are very serious about doing their creative work, because these are really good starting points, but certainly not going to be something for professionals to use. But you will be surprised by how well the creative applications work on here, even things like Procreate that can be pretty advanced. All right, I'm comfortable with that. So I think that sums up the fact that I know nothing about artwork, but I know enough about it to recommend something here, and I think that's where we're going. Chad Smith is asking about gaming. We are going to get to that. That is next on the list. I just want to make sure that I got everything covered here with the pencil that I wanted to talk about. And I think I want to make sure I got everything in here. Yeah, okay. Let's watch that real quick, and then we'll move on. 3, 2, 1. Now, as you saw, I am not an artist, but you can run a lot of advanced creative applications on here. I'm going to load up one real quick just to show you that it works. That is Procreate, and I've been messing up all their custom artwork here that they include with it. But this is a really advanced multi-layer illustration application. My daughter's been doing a lot with this, and I'm just amazed by what she can do. And it works fine. I mean, I think if you start going into a lot of heavy-duty artwork where you're layering in a lot of different things and you're really taxing the hardware, you're going to probably hit the limit here when you get a little too advanced with your creativity. But if you're just doing basics here, like just drawing on screen and maybe having 5 or 6 layers or something on Procreate, I think this iPad might be a good starting point, especially if you're on a budget. You can buy this iPad and this pencil for significantly less than what an iPad Pro will cost you. Where the iPad Pro has an advantage, though, is in its overall processing power, the amount of memory it has. It's going to be a lot faster as you start getting more complex with your artwork and photography and video. And that's still where I'll point people who are very serious about doing their creative work, because these are really good starting faster as you start. Where the iPad Pro has an advantage, though, is in its overall processing power, the amount of memory it has. It's going to be a lot faster as you start getting more complex with your artwork and photography and video. And that's still where I'll point people who are very serious about doing their creative work, because these are really good starting points, but certainly not going to be something for professionals to use. But you will be surprised by how well the creative applications work on here, even things like Procreate that can be pretty advanced. All right, I am happy with that. So now we're going to move on to the part of the show where I get paid to play video games. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pair up my Xbox controller with the iPad, and we need to get the controller turned on here. Is the battery dead? Of course the battery's dead. How could the battery be dead? Let's see. I have more batteries. I have rechargeable batteries, but they're all in things, and I don't know what happened to them. So here we go. It still works. So we're going to do that. So what's cool about the iPad now is that you can pair up your Xbox and PlayStation controllers with it. Unfortunately, though, the 8BitDo controllers don't pair with the iPad because they have to be, it's got to be like an Xbox controller. All right, there we go. It is connected. I'm just going to adjust the camera here. And I also want to make sure that the game that I have loaded up on here, which is GTA Vice City, I want to make sure that works with this here. It looks like it does. it's working. And we'll get that started up real quick. And it's got to get through the cutscenes here. And by the way, this is another area where, you know, there aren't a lot of games that really take advantage, going back to this versus the iPad Pro, there aren't many games that take advantage of the iPad Pro. So when you're on something like this, it's fine. I mean, you know, most of the developers out there are targeting this device as opposed to targeting the iPad Pro, because there's a lot more of these out there than there are iPad Pros out there. And it's going to see what the button combination are. So he jumps with this button. Does he jump with that button? Or he kicks with that button? Where's his jump? Okay. There we go. All right, there we go. Okay. So let me address this question here real quick. So, oops, wrong button. Hang on. So Hong here is asking, everyone's streaming in 1440p. You're still on 720p. I know. It's terrible. It's my bandwidth. I got lousy connections here. So we did, and just so everyone knows, because I almost feel like I've started, you know, because we had the stream drop out due to my internet problems. A lot of you watching did not get the update that I did in the other stream, because I have a whole new audience now than I did before. My connection, my fiber optic connection is installed, and we're just waiting on Comcast availability. And soon we will be not only streaming at 1440p, but I will probably try to start going at 4K, because I can. Or I might do 1080p 60, who knows, we'll see. So we'll continue to send stuff to Amazon. We'll do the maximum resolution that they can support, and I'll have a lot of bandwidth here, so it'll be great. All right. And if there's another game that I should be trying out on here, let me know. One that would support the game controller, because that's kind of what we want to focus on here. Okay, because really this is about the fact that these controllers work with it. All right, so we're going to pick it up from where we left off. Let me just see where our last clip was on. Okay, so it was on that. So now we're going to go to the game controller. Actually, you know what? Well, we're going to shoot this out of order, because what I wanted to do next was, we should still do that. Let me come back to the game. We're going to come back to the game, because I forgot to do the whole keyboard thing. That's what I wanted to do next here. So let's do that real quick. And we're going to roll in some B-roll on this as well. So let me zoom the camera out briefly here, and then we'll do the gaming, and then we're done. Got to get the work done before we can play the games. Ugh. And we're going to roll in this B-roll clip that I've got here, which I'll show you real quick. So we're going to roll in this B-roll of a Logitech case that we reviewed previously. I should probably get the name of that Logitech case before we talk about it. Let me do that real quick too. And I think it was the Logitech. So if you got game recommendations for me in the interim, let me know. iPad Pro, because that would be very helpful. Keyboard, trackpad. I think it's called the Folio. Yeah, Combo Touch. It's called Combo Touch. So that's the name of that one. So let me get that going here. Hang asked another question about pairing up a keyboard and mouse for FPS games. Yes, provided it supports it. So they need support for the, it needs to have mouse support specifically, and if it has it, then it will work. And I think I'm going to touch on this topic briefly because we did do a whole video on this already. And this is a good opportunity to talk about the fact that not all trackpads are created equal when it comes to iPads as well. All right, so let's pick it up from here, and then we'll finish up on the gaming. 3, 2, 1. And again, if you got a game recommendation that you want to see running on this that supports the game controller, let me know. Because I'm running like GTA Vice City, which is an old one, but it's a good demonstrator, I think, because it is a pretty in-depth game and it works good. And I did not pay for the subscription service for the other games that they've got on here. All right. Let's go to here. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Now, one other feature that was added to iPads recently is the ability to use a trackpad in addition to a keyboard. And right now I've got this Logitech Bluetooth keyboard trackpad combo paired up. And as you can see, I get a mouse pointer on screen, and I can basically use my iPad like I would a laptop. One thing to note, though, is that not all trackpads are created equal when it comes to your iPad. So they have to specifically support Apple's pinching and zooming and the other gestures that iOS supports. Let me start this again. 3, 2, 1. Now, another cool thing about iPads is that they support trackpads along with keyboards. 3, 2, 1. Now, another neat feature about iPads is that they can now work more like laptops, and that you can use a keyboard and a trackpad with them. So right now I've got this Logitech K830 paired up with it. And as you can see over Bluetooth, I've got a mouse pointer here working that I can use to browse the website. And then, of course, I can use the keyboard to type things in as well. So it seems to be working pretty nicely for the most part. We did a whole video on this topic, so it might be worth checking that out. One thing to note is that not all trackpads will allow you to do everything that the iPad supports. So for example here, if I wanted to pinch to zoom on this trackpad, it doesn't work and it gets confused. So you do need something that's officially supported to get the full potential out of it. But I found that most Bluetooth mice will at least give you basic mouse pointing capabilities with left and right clicking. But the more advanced stuff might require something that Apple has blessed. One device that we looked at recently was the combo trackpad from Logitech, and it worked really nicely with this iPad form factor. This supports the 10.2 7th and 8th generation iPads, and it's got a really nice integrated trackpad that works perfectly with all of the different things that iPad OS supports. It's backlit, as you can see here, and we found it to be a really decent keyboard for pairing up with your iPad, and it works as a case as well. I'm going to do that one more time. I wasn't satisfied with that take. Max Stock is wondering about the Pixel 5, by the way, and I think I'm getting a Pixel 5. So if I do get one, I will certainly do an unboxing. We'll probably do a live stream when it gets here. So yeah, they sent us a Pixel 4a, which is this phone. I'm very happy with this phone because I like to have an Android phone around, and because I use my iPhone as the daily driver, but I do like the Android phones. I want to do this one more time. I wasn't happy with how this came out. 3, 2, 1. Now 3, 2, 1. Now another feature added recently to the iPad is trackpad support. You could also use a traditional mouse if you want. They have adapters to go from the Lightning connector here to USB if you wanted to use a wired mouse, or you can go with Bluetooth like I'm doing here. And as you can see, we get a mouse pointer moving around. I can click on things just like a laptop. I could go up to the search bar here and type stuff in with the keyboard. It pretty much works like a laptop would, although some trackpads work better than others. So this one on this Logitech K830 will allow me to do two-finger scrolling and left and right clicking, but it doesn't do some of the more advanced gestures that iOS supports. And for that, you'll need either an Apple official trackpad or something that Apple has blessed officially, like this Logitech combo trackpad case that we looked at a few months ago. This one works with this generation iPad and the 7th gen. It's a really nice keyboard, actually. It's got a decent trackpad that supports all the different gestures, and it makes your iPad really feel like a laptop. And I think it's a really nice addition to the iPad OS that you can get this trackpad functionality. And that Logitech keyboard also is backlit too, which might be handy for folks that are looking for that kind of functionality there. But still, it's really nice to see this trackpad implemented so well. We did a full video on how this works, so you should definitely check that out to get more information as to how this feature is functioning. All right. I wasn't crazy about the conclusion there, but I'll live with it. Trackpad. And if I do the 9th generation iPad, this video will be exactly the same. You got to cover all this stuff, because here's the thing. When I do a video, I assume that nobody has seen the first one I did, because most of my traffic, 80% of my traffic, are people who search. So they just kind of stumble across my channel. So you've got to really start from scratch with every video. 3, 2, 1. Now, another feature added recently to the iPad is trackpad support. You could also use a traditional mouse if you want. They have adapters to go from the Lightning connector here to USB if you wanted to use a wired mouse, or you can go with Bluetooth like I'm doing here. And as you can see, we get a mouse pointer moving around. I can click on things just like a laptop. I could go up to the search bar here and type stuff in with the keyboard. It pretty much works like a laptop would, although some trackpads work better than others. So this one on this Logitech K830 will allow me to do 2-finger scrolling and left and right clicking, but it doesn't do some of the more advanced gestures that iOS supports. And for that, you'll need either an Apple official trackpad or something that Apple has blessed officially, like this Logitech Combo that iOS supports.